Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap PGF Season 6. We are also going to recap BJJ Stars 12, the medium heavyweight tournament. Talk a little bit Enigma coming up that happens when we are recording, and then talk a little bit about who's number one in 2 weeks. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host.
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Got a massage today, and yeah, I'm having a pretty good day. We got to watch some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
We just did about an hour pre-show and talked about essentially how we're going to cover the neatness that was PGF Season 6. We have a bunch of ADCC announcements that I don't think are public yet, so we can't say anything about them. But hopefully in a couple of weeks, we basically have information.
I know nothing.
We have information that basically most of the invites are out there, and so we're going to start getting invites. Some really exciting stuff.
Oh,
I think,
that was
women's divisions.
That was the new one was Gabi Garcia.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's the announcement.
That is public.
Yeah, they
so
announced
awesome.
that Gabi Garcia is going to be in.
Or they invited her. I think Gabi announced that she was invited.
Yeah,
Do we know
that's
that
how
she's
it
going to be
was.
there yet? I assume that she posted it. That means she's going to be.
Yeah. My assumption is she's going to be there.
Like, I'm excited. She's always, again, people talk a lot of shit of Gabi Garcia, I think very undeservedly. But in the women's plus 65 kilogram division, like, I think she's an exciting wrench in that for a lot of people. 4-time champion in ADCC. She didn't have the greatest showing at 2022, but like other than that, has been nothing but dominant for the past.
Well, she was
12
she was
years.
dominant until she went against
Amanda.
No, Campo.
Campo this last time, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's number one was Amanda Lev.
Yeah.
But Campo, yeah.
But I mean, she has been dominant in the game for a very long time.
I'm excited to see Gabi Garcia. She's been a fixture in ADCC. If there's now a new women's weight class, it's even heavier that puts her with even better parallel in the modern game. I like seeing Gabi Garcia. I think she brings a really cool energy. One of the nicest people I have ever interviewed in all the years we've been doing this.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Super pleasant, super nice. I interviewed her during Gary Tonin versus Edwin Najmi.
Okay.
So the interview audio is inaudible because Gary Tonin hit a flying scissor takedown on Edwin Najmi during
and everybody
that.
starts screaming.
And everyone just screams. And Gabi Garcia and I, in the interview, you can just see us both look to the side and go, what the hell is happening? And then, like, I think later I matched the timestamps and went, oh, that's what was happening right then. So the audio, I don't know if I ever released. I think I might have released it on like Instagram. The audio was just trash, but one of the most pleasant people I have ever interviewed. Super happy to potentially have her back in ADCC. As again, I always love seeing your long-standing returning champions because it gives the new generation an opportunity to kind of go against those legends in the sport. Love hearing about Gabi Garcia coming back into jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So I think that's all we have that's public right now.
Yeah.
It'll be super fun over the next couple of weeks, I think, to hear the finals. We're going to have one more trials event for ADCC. The Oceanic and Asian trials have one more trials, and then we will have essentially our full lineups minus drops, your late reserves, and your like any other changes of division will all be finalized. So that the show that Zach and I did a couple of weeks ago, basically previewing every ADCC name. If you are curious at this time who has been announced or who was announced as of a couple of weeks ago, Zach and I go through pretty much every person but like 3 that are announced for their credentials, why they're there, and give some background on who they are as grapplers. That was a really interesting show if you want some more information about everyone announced so far for the 2024 cycle.
Yeah, and at some point we'll probably have a week and do it again.
Yeah.
Before it happens.
Because as people change divisions and just like update of like, he's now won this, they've won this, she's won this, she's done this. Because the women's divisions at that time were a little quiet. So I think this week and next week we will get much more filling out of where your returning champions are going, where your new people are going, and we'll fill out the rest of those divisions. So that's
Sounds
exciting.
good.
So Miranda, what do you want to do this week? Do you want to talk about PGF first? Or you want to talk about BJJ Stars 12 first?
We'll go PGF because it's up first on the notes. So
PGF. So we haven't covered PGF since PGF season 1. We covered it a little bit in season 1. The format back then was a little bit difficult to cover. It was a fun event. It's been a fun event. We've been getting messages for a couple of years now asking us to cover more PGF. Here it is. It is going to be. So this is going to be more of a take on the tournament. It was the entirety of this week. It was a 5-day event. Each day was, I think, 4 to 6 hours almost, depending on how the tournament ran.
30 matches and
over 4 days. And then the finals was a day, and then the drafting was a day itself. Yeah. So we are not going to be able to cover all the matches. We're not going to be able to cover even a good portion of the matches just because it is 100 plus matches.
It's 120.
120, well, plus the finals.
30 a day.
Yeah,
for
30 a day
4
for
days.
4 days. And then your finals, which was a bracket of eight-man bracket for like its own prize. And then your athlete bidding for it to establish your team. So we're going to cover this the best that we can. It was a fun event. You should watch it. The finals especially that were broadcast on Fight Pass, it was kind of its own tournament. That seeded off of the main tournament for the teams. Yeah. It was really interesting. We're going to spend more time talking about that probably because I think it's a little more digestible. Yeah. Miranda, you kind of broke it down really well on the pre-show. Do you want to explain the format for how this season how most seasons of PGF run? This was for $100,000 to the winning team. We had 4 teams in this tournament.
Yes. And then on day 1, they picked who they wanted. They had, I think it was 160,000 points. Yeah, because maybe
they had some of value.
1,600 points, I think.
I don't remember either.
And then and I wrote this down because I started taking notes initially when this draft started. I started taking notes, and then I wound up never completing my notes. But
so they basically seeded it, and then had every grappler buy their seed, step up essentially, and then the teams and each of the coaches for the team would select out of their pool of money how much money they wanted to spend on that athlete. And you had to submit and basically bid for 5 different grapplers on your team. And so you had to be cautious about how you spent your money to get your...
It was 16,000. Because 5,200 was what PJ went for.
Yeah.
And 5,300 was the top bidding, and that was for Andy Varela.
Yeah. So your upper echelon guys that are probably going to do very, very well went for more money, obviously, because they are probably going to score your team the most points. And how this tournament works is you select your team based on how you draft, based on where you want to put your funds towards your grapplers. These are all kind of fake money as well. Yeah. And then you select your team, and then the tournament runs over 4 days, and at the end of it, based on if your team has more chokes or arm locks or fast wins or like draw wins or disqualification wins. Or like 2 points. You get amount of points, and the team with the most points.
Let's slow down a little bit. So there were 6-minute matches. You could win by choke, submission,
arm lock, joint lock, any standard crank or something like that.
Yes. But and if nothing happened, then it was a draw. Now they did the first day to the last day, they changed up the stalling calls because initially they weren't calling it a ton, and then they started going really heavy into stalling calls. And they would call stalling calls if you were on top or bottom if you didn't move. Yeah. They wanted you to move at all times, and you wanted you to attack at all times.
Kind of like how kind of how ADCC does stalling a bit, where it's like if you
I saw there were some stalling calls that were like a little like but so
you change your format, it's kind of growing pains with these kind of formats.
So your first one is a warning. Your second one is they get referee position, which is down on all fours, turtle, with somebody on your back with a wrist wrap and a and a
like
chest
standard
wrap.
Wrestling referee's position as if
and
you
ever start and you start from that position. And then I believe if you got a penalty after that was the person you went against got 2 points.
Okay.
And that was the way they did it. And I don't believe anybody got to that point. I think they got to the
couple
referee.
Got close. I know that. A couple got to the first one. There was a discussion on broadcast about them going to a second one. But again, I liked where they were going with it. I'm not sure I loved how it was implemented, but I do like... I think it's one of the things we've talked about for years and years and years on the show. If you want to have, I think 6 minutes is great. Yeah. But if you want to have consistent action through that time, you need some mechanism for the referee or judges or some outside agency to be pushing the action and furthering the development of the match.
And you did.
And there's something good.
Yeah. And you did see on the early days, the gentlemen that weren't more used to that format getting kind of discombobulated by it, if that makes any sense. Like, PJ Barch, great grappler, amazing grappler. First day, I think every match went to a draw first day because he just
and second day maybe.
Yeah,
did he score second day even?
I don't remember when he started scoring, but he had a rough go at the beginning, and it was more. And he even explained it. He said he was, he went for 2 weeks in a beach in Thailand, and that's where he came from. So I guess he wasn't training. And then he did an interview and basically bluntly said that. And then he said, but he wanted to do it because he liked everybody that was involved in it, and he wanted to be part of it, and he wanted to get other big names part of it too. And he knew that by going into it, that's what would happen.
Which is awesome. Which again,
which is great
for one of those for the love of the game interviews. And it's one of the reasons we like PJ Barch.
But
because, like,
he also said and because of him not doing EBI format and doing a lot of ADCC format,
he just got invited to ADCC again. Like it's understandable.
He's not like used to the whole 6 minutes. Sub only thing, which is like you play fast and loose. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You jump for things that you shouldn't. He's worried about positioning
because he wants to win ADCC.
Because he's worrying about good jiu-jitsu. And like he's not jumping on shit just to jump on shit. So it took him a little bit of time to like get to that. And then later days he did, like the last 2 days he did great, like jumping shit. Yeah. But some of the gentlemen that are more used to like that kind of jiu-jitsu definitely had a little bit harder. Canuto was the same way. I think it took day 2 or day 3 to get Canuto going. But then you had
at the top levels, like a lot of times guys are very, very used to specific formats, and like then their game is structured, and the way they train, the way they compete is structured around like winning and scoring points. And so if you throw a guy versus people, and we've seen this for years and years in the EBI style formats, like you throw those guys in, sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment period to get them. It's one of the reasons I actually liked the PGF format here over the days. It was a bit long, but you saw that development of like Barch didn't have great performances score-wise the first 2 days, and then you saw towards the end.
But they weren't bad, but they weren't, they were amazing performances. He just, because they weren't scored like point-wise, he didn't get anything from
That's what I mean. Like, as far as like result in this format, it doesn't show like how good they were.
And at a high level, subs aren't very common. Like if you think about high level, like let's go IBJJF, high level like finals in IBJJF, in worlds, in no-gi world, like
50% finals is a phenomenal year. 30% finals is still a pretty good year.
But you generally get a lot of
it's very, very hard at the highest levels to have people submitting each other routinely and frequently. It happens, and there's like standout guys, but it's always really interesting when it does.
Yeah, I think day 2 was when PJ Barch and Andy Varela went against each other.
Yeah, that's correct.
And Andy Varela threw PJ Barch over one couch and into another.
Okay, let's talk about the format. So, first of all, watch the event. It was great. The first 4 days are on YouTube.
Yeah, they're on YouTube. It's great. You can.
And that is the team tournament. Yeah. And this, I really liked how this was put together because it felt like you were watching. I'm gonna say it, like from Django Unchained.
Like it felt like a backdoor.
It felt like a
rich
people fight thing,
club.
And I kind of really dug the format.
Because they had like a chandelier and they had these like fancy couches.
They had a bunch of couches around the edge, and it was all people that were pretty dressed up. They looked like they were kind of at a fancy, nicer event.
I think all the people that were in the couches that were around were either the coaches or they were the owners. They were the owners of the teams. So each team had like a company. Like Epic Roll is a clothing company. First Form is protein.
Yeah. Black Rifle is a coffee company. And X Marshall is a clothing company.
And so the people from those organizations, or like the owners, they were kind of who was on those seats. So they definitely dressed to the nines.
It was really
you had
cool.
like the X Marshall lady with her little dog that almost got taken out by I don't know how many groups of people.
Repeatedly.
And then you had another guy, and I forget who the guy was, but he had this big ass pit bull. But it was on a leash, but it was just chilling and watching everything, and it didn't seem to give a shit what was going on. It was just sitting there.
It was a super
wow,
neat. It's one of the things we talk about with Grapple Fest. Yeah. Like it's a cool venue, it's a cool vibe. Like it was really neat to watch. Like how just the ambiance of the event was very, very unique, and I actually really enjoyed it. Turned out like, man, this looks wild to watch. I can't imagine what it's like to be there. And they had great broadcasters. Yeah. Like again, the whole event was super cool.
The one guy in his interview, I guess they didn't give him music to walk out to. He wanted to walk out to Cardi B, and he said that was the reason why he didn't win.
That's funny.
But they didn't give him walkout music. That was the only thing that was different than some kind of rich high class super fight thing. But they tried to walk him in pretty fast so that they could get through.
It was the first. That's one of the things that was a bit hard for me was midweek. It was The events were about 4 hours apiece.
Yeah.
They were a bit too long for me to commit a lot of time week to week. I tried to match as much as I could.
Yeah.
But just with the week that I've had work-wise, it was pretty difficult.
Yeah, I would turn it on after I got done training. And then while I was doing other things, I would have it in the background. So every once in a while I would look over. But that's the only way you can really, because it's 4 hours a day for 5 days.
Midweek during a work week. Yeah, it was.
That's a lot to watch.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. The matches were a lot of fun. I think that short time frame works really well with this format. The way that the first 4 days worked, before we get into the finals, what we'll talk about here in a second, was each team selected their 5 grapplers, and then it was essentially a dual meet.
Yes.
By day. So Team X Marshall would go against Team Black Rifle, and then Team Epic Roll would go against Team First Form. And my biggest issue with the event overall for the first 4 days, the finals make a lot of sense, they're easy to follow, was that there wasn't a lot of graphics on the screen to tell me, because again, everyone's the same weight, or essentially 175 or below.
Yeah.
I didn't know what matches I could expect next. Like, okay, well, these two teams, Epic Roll and Black Rifle, are going against each other today. Are we going to see PJ Barch and Andy Varela against each other? Are we not? What's the next match?
The only way that you could do that was it was all run on Smooth Comp.
Yeah.
So through Smooth Comp, you could see the next match coming up and like who was on deck, and you could see all the matches leading up.
One thing I think Quintet does really well is they do a similar team-based format, but whenever one of the match ends, they immediately have a graphic which shows, okay, these two guys went, this is the next matchup you're about to see, and it gives you more context for the team format. That's one thing I really think the PGF needs. They need some way, if they're going to have 30 matches in a day, some way to give the viewer, especially, like I'm coming in halfway through a match and like I'm going to watch for another 30 minutes. Give me some context of where we are in the bracketing, where we are in the tournament, where we are team wise for the scores. Like we also watched the fantasy.
They did that all through Brandon McCatherine.
Yeah.
He was the one, like, between matches, he would kind of give you the gist of what was going on.
But you had to listen and key in.
But you had to key in and listen.
I need a graphic.
You need the visual.
Yeah, because it's really hard to keep track of this many grapplers, this many teams, this many points in a format that we don't see a ton. It's super neat. We'll definitely cover the next PGF if it's a run like this. But that's one thing I think they really needed is to give you the format throughout the week so that it would be easier to follow what was going on. They also ran a fantasy thing online that Miranda and I talked about.
Yeah.
Every day we'd like ping each other about like how the fantasy
We tried to. I did horribly.
I did okay, but there seems to be a bunch of glitches with the fantasy system for them. Like the first day just never got calculated, just never got added.
See, mine did.
But you're the only one. Everyone else in the comments in the chat all said that it just doesn't.
I know.
And it's not tabulated in their final results either. So there seemed to be a bunch of issues with the fantasy side of it.
Yeah.
It was neat and it was cool. It was just really hard to work and figure out.
And the other thing was, with the fantasy thing, the first day, my thought was to try to get as many people on your team, because basically you had the same setup that they did for the draft.
Yeah.
You have all these people, they have them ranked, and they have them with money besides the rank, and you're given so much money and you have to pick so many. And initially my thought was get as many bodies competing as you can on your team. But then I realized you didn't really have to do that. If you had 2 guys that you knew were going to kill everyone, that basically would win you.
Yeah,
if you knew
understanding how the formatting worked was odd, and like the fantasy thing is super neat. I think it needs a lot more description.
Yeah.
Of like how it worked,
but it was fun.
It was fun,
and
we talked about it every day.
Yeah,
we'd chat about
it gave us something to do, which was nice. And I'm looking at what I came up. What was
the other thing was weird was you and I keep pulling up the same page with way different results.
Yeah, and it's like right here it says I'm like 134.
Yeah, it was. So that was the other weird thing is like we were looking at the same URL on the same web page, but it was displaying different. So I don't know if it was a caching issue or some issue, but the fantasy was fun, but it didn't work right. There was major issues with the way the fantasy was working midweek.
Our friend Vegas Tim was number 16.
Oh, nice.
Which I mean is a lot higher than I got. I think you got to the 30s and I got to like 100 and blah 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 blah.
It was fun though.
But it was fun. It was something to do. It was something you could do with your friends.
Again, the format. Again, people have been asking us to cover it for a long time. We did. So let's go into the results here, because that was how the format ran. I would love to see some little changes, but overall, it was a very fun event. First 2 days had a host of technical issues on the broadcast side, like audio volume and frame rate. But it seems like in the last 2 days, and then in the finals on Fight Pass, all of that was addressed, and so that's again stumbling pains. But the first 2 days was rough to watch live.
Yeah.
Finals, we had $100,000 to Team X Marshall, and that team included Elijah Carlton, David Evers, Davis Asari, Nathan Haydad, and then Ben Eddy.
Yes.
We finally have a pronunciation on Nathan's last name. Haydad.
Yeah, Haydad.
So that was cool. Again, I love seeing athletes get paid. Then we had a $20,000 finals bracket that was essentially who had the best standings from the team tournament, went into a final, essentially 8-man best of tournament for yourself.
Yeah. And Ben Eddy was actually qualified and supposed to be in the number 8 position, and he gave the position to PJ Barge.
Okay. Oh, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
He says that he thought PJ belonged there and could do better or something like that.
Good for him. Again, PJ Barge, I mean, a lot of 10th guys are.
And he also said something to the effect of, I think he was beat up.
Yeah.
Because his game
his game is hard in his body.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that was interesting. We had some dropouts and some injuries because, it's a 4 or 5 day tournament, depending on how far you make it. Guys got beat up. Like John.
Well, it's not how far you make it. It's a 4-day tournament, and you go every day, no matter if you lose.
Well, 4 or
you
5.
Lose. Yeah.
It's 4 or 5 days, depending on if you make it to the 5th day. Yeah.
But I mean, if you lose, you just keep going. Like it's it's a bad day for you.
So we had John Combs get a leg injury. We don't know exactly what he had.
Like hip, leg, knee, something injury day 1.
So he's out. He was still in fantasy. And it's funny, he wasn't in the fantasy. He still was kind of lower middle of the pack, and it was weird because he's out.
Because they also said every day they were checking him every day.
Yeah, they didn't know if he was going to come back.
Yeah.
So he did not end up coming back. We also had Daniel Slather.
Sadler.
I look at
day 3. Davis Asar. Yeah, got him. But before that, he was killing.
Dude, he was in the top of the rankings. He's the guy that has that win over Max Hansen, and him and Hansen had hella beef this weekend.
they had some sort of situation in the back. There's videos of it that are online.
You told me AJ Agazarm was the one to break up the fight.
Dude,
AJ Agazarm won some fans this weekend.
He won me, and I'm not normally an AJ fan because
he's AJ Agazarm.
What I've always seen cockiness, and I've seen overly cockiness. I saw him kick. Who did he kick off the stage?
No, he got kicked off the stage.
Oh, he got kicked off the stage.
Yeah, he got kicked by Wagner, I think.
Yeah, that was what it was.
Years ago.
Just stupid shit. I've always seen
that
stuff out of him where I was like, what the or he did fight to win in gray sweatpants. Just I don't know.
He's a character.
He was always like that. But then this thing made me be like, oh, he's a cool guy. Because he broke up the fight. And then you could see him in the background when they were explaining everything. And he was being almost the big brother, trying to make sure everybody was cool. And then whenever they did interviews with him, he always talked about how great other people were.
Yeah,
I was like, holy shit!
It was a really interesting side of AJ.
Yeah,
and it was cool. Again, Agazarm is a very polarizing figure in the community. Yeah. It was really cool to see kind of a different side of him, and even he had one of the alternates that replaced either Daniel or Combs. Came in that was one of his training partners, and then you showed me the interview because I missed it. Of him talking about that guy coming in and hey guys, give it a round of applause for this guy who had to come and face me, even though he's the guy we trained together, and he did all this work, came in and did all this, huge round of applause. It was not he won the match, and then giving all these props to the guy that had come in to be a late replacement was it was a really cool side of Agazarm that we don't see very frequently. Yeah. And it was nice. It was refreshing to have.
Every time they interviewed him, he was saying really positive stuff about everybody.
Yeah.
It was
the anti-heel turn for AJ.
Yeah, he seemed kind of sweet. And then they also said John Combs did an interview day 1, and he also said that because he threw up after the Andy Varela match
that was a trials. That was versus Andy, wasn't it?
It was against Andy.
Yeah.
So
in ADCC West Coast trials, famously Combs got DQ'd for throwing up versus a match versus Andy Varela.
A nasty, all over the place in front of the camera throw up. But Varela wound up being the one that got Combs a physical therapist to deal with whatever his leg issue was.
Because Varela's local to Vegas where this event was. And so it is cool that it is cool to see the community in certain ways in these kind of events
help each other,
come together.
Well, and help each other, not just be like, not be from, you know, the area and just not be like, nah, you know, and just like not help out another person that's injured or that's having problems. So
it was a neat event.
Yes. So it was nice to see that kind of stuff. They did a lot of interviews after each day. So after they did the matches, they did like a post,
an hour or so.
Yeah. And that was
great.
And that was hilarious because they interviewed some people and they were just talking about all kinds of stuff. It
got a little wild and loose at the end of the day, as most 10th Planet style events do. And people really enjoy that. So,
but anyway, we go into finals.
Yeah.
And
so the first tournament was good. It was a lot of fun. Big standouts for me were Jet Thompson. Was the guy that who I think somebody messaged us like a while ago, like, hey, keep an eye on this kid. He's a dude to watch. He had some phenomenal submissions throughout the tournament. We had an armbar from the bottom at one point that was great. He had really good leg lock entries. He's like a 17-year-old kid.
He almost arm locked PJ Barch in the
triangle,
match.
I thought, wasn't it?
Was it triangle?
It was a triangle armbar, I think, that PJ like got out of, but it was had Barch not gotten out of it, I would not have been surprised. It was a phenomenal showing for Jet Thompson. He's a guy that from this tournament should be on your radar. Carlton, again, always is the former PGF champion for season 6. Season 5 looked really good. And Davis Asari, the guy that we've talked about him on trials. He's he's a new wave guy. There's a Norwegian that did the trials for Europe. And we've known he's good. He's been a guy. He has a really cool match in one of the ADCC Opens versus Andy Varela. He looked phenomenal. He was the number 1 seed after day 1 points wise, and he maintained that lead throughout the entirety of the tournament, like pretty clearly submitting the most people in the tournament overall. Like he had a standout showing.
Yeah, and Daniel Sattler. I keep on trying to call him Salfler. I don't know.
Yeah.
The L and the TH I keep on like messing up in my, and then I think it's Campos. I think he's like Daniel Campos because it said Campos on the screen.
Oh, that's why I know him.
Yeah,
we've
Campos.
seen that name before. Okay, that makes sense.
But anyway, he is Atto's headquarters guy, and he had went against Max Hansen,
who's number 1.
Who's number
the jumping
1.
armbar, who's number 1, and they've also went against the IBJJF.
Yeah,
he looked really good.
He looked really good
injured
until he got injured
by Asari on day 3.
Yeah,
so it was a fun event. I don't really have a ton else to talk about on the week. Like the week had 120 plus matches. It was really interesting. They threw some super fights in there for the finals. Overall, it was a lot of fun. It's very hard to digest. I really hope that PGF puts out like a highlight match or like a cut down version of best of season 6 or something like they do it in some sort of way.
They were doing that kind of every night, but it was here and there. And it really depended on.
It would be nice to have like a cut down version to be able to kind of, hey, here are the matches that were really good from season 6. Because again, it was just very hard to watch 16 hours or 20 hours of stuff throughout the week.
But then we go into finals, and they rank it 1 to 8 depending on how many points they had. So one of our first matches was Davis Assar, who was our number 1 seed, versus PJ Barch, who was our number 8 seed,
taking the spot from Ben Eddy.
And PJ Barch won. In OT, right? I'm most positive it was OT.
I believe that's correct.
I'll double check that.
PGF, it is a lot of matches, and there's 2 separate tournaments here with the same guys.
Either leg locked him or OT. And that's why my brain is being a little slow about it. But he did take out the number 1 seed, and I was like, ooh, maybe we're gonna get a PJ Barch.
Andy Varela final. Well, actually, no, sorry. We got PJ Barch, Andy Varela again in the semifinals. Andy takes that. And that was again another kind of fun match.
That was OT from the back.
Which again, both guys 10 Planet, both guys very good in that format. I think Varela has more recent experience in the EBI style overtime. Over this tournament, I don't know if we've touched on it. A lot of pieces. They only did it OT from the back. Which. Again, I've talked about OT at length. I don't really like OT, but if you're not going to have draws and you're not going to have judges, like I do like starting on the back. The back seems like a more neutral, fair position than starting a guy in an armbar.
I think it was an ankle lock.
Okay.
At 322. So that
That's
PJ Barch. He ankle locked him.
Davis is sorry.
Yeah.
PJ and Andy go. Andy takes that one. And then on the other side of the bracket, we had Elijah Carlton hitting a really neat ankle lock over Renato Canuto.
Yeah. 35 seconds. Pretty fast, too.
Was it that fast?
It says 35 seconds.
It was like off the first exchange, and it was really interesting. Renato did a really interesting running man, and Carlton was able to thread his inside leg all the way through in like a deep saddle and was able to slide back to the heel hook. And Canuto was like, yeah, man, now I'm good. I've been competing for 4 days. I'm good. And that was the other kind of interesting thing was as guys got further in, you saw a lot of people in the next match. We had Elijah Carlton and Jet Thompson. Carlton taps really quickly to Jet Thompson's Aoki lock. Yeah. And it was like, and you kind of brought it up in the pre-show, like you kind of wonder how beat up these guys are day 5 at this point.
Especially when you have people cranking on your feet all the time. Yeah.
It's good for a tournament where you have to submit guys, you go to the legs a lot because it's just like, it is an easier way when guys are fatigued to beat them. You don't have to get as much dominant control on someone. You can just sort of go to the legs. Yeah. And with the way that Jet Thompson plays, like he was looking for the legs a lot this weekend from the guard. It was a really interesting semifinals match that Thompson takes quickly. In the finals of this day 5 tournament, in the individual tournament, I don't know what we really want to call this.
The finals.
Yeah, the finals.
In the finals
we
bracket.
had Andy Varela and Jet Thompson. It goes to overtime, and then we have Andy Varela getting a rear naked choke on Jet Thompson, and then in like 35 seconds or something like that. Yeah. And then Miranda and I both kind of independently went, and Andy Varela wins. Yeah. Because there is no way you're putting away Andy Varela.
He had his arm all the way around Andy's head and was cranking that shit, but there is no way I think Andy Varela would let you break his neck before he lost.
Yeah, by that, for a finals match like that, Andy Varela, he seems like the kind of guy that'll let it break.
Plus it's 35 seconds. It's not like...
Yeah, he can do enough to defense. Yeah. Like, you're going to have 6 or 7 seconds, even if you're super deep, that you can gut it through.
This is a super chippy match, too, because Jet likes to, like...
He posts on your face.
Yeah, he likes to kind of manage distance by posting on your face. And Andy Varela did the same thing that he did in West Coast Trials, where he just completely bitch slaps you to move.
Yep.
And this time, like, Jet just kind of giggled at him and just kept on going.
Wait, these didn't have a match, did they?
Yeah, they did earlier.
No, I'm saying this wasn't the West Coast Trials match that got
chipped. Oh no,
okay,
no, that was another
different guy versus Varela.
It was still a young, a younger dude versus Varela.
Yeah. Overall, it was a really fun event. Again, there was some. It was hard to follow throughout the week. I would love more graphics. I would love a little more like broadcast structure that's not just the commentary explaining things, but actual like. Here's the team, here's the graphic for the team, here's the graphic for the other team, here's the matches you're going to see today, and like, here are the matches that have finished today, here's what the result, like, some sort of breakdowns and on broadcast scoring. Like, that would be really nice to see, because it was a bit hard to follow with just commentary. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I'm really happy that PGF did this. I really hope that it works out well for PGF, and that they are able to run another season of this in the way they did it at this scale with this level of production, because again, you paid out grapplers, $20,000 or $40,000 in Varela's case, or sorry, $20,000 in Varela's case, and $20,000 to a bunch of other people. Like, I love seeing grapplers get paid. I'm happy that there is a place for them to be able to do that and put on fun matches throughout the week. Yeah. There's a bunch of matches to break down. We have stand-up performances from Davis Asari and Jet Thompson. Elijah Carlton is a guy that we've known has been really good in the PGF system, and he shows that again here, being at the top of the heap. Daniel Slather looks good.
And there was a bunch of other gentlemen in this bracket here and there that definitely put on.
Yeah, had fun performances.
I mean, sometimes they were holding their own against people that were of a higher level than them.
ADCC level folks. Yeah. It was a neat tournament. I really enjoyed it. And I'm really excited for PGF Season 7. There's again, we have 30 hours of footage and events. There's a lot of stuff we're just not going to get a chance to talk about.
But watch it. It's fun. Yeah. It's free. It's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You can just catch a day of it. Yeah. And watch some good matches.
It was super cool. Let's move on to BJJ Stars 12. We have a medium heavyweight Grand Prix and a bunch of super fights. This was fun. The U.S. commentary was Victor Hugo and Joe Gilpin. Yeah. Which is very funny. Joe Gilpin, he is a local guy to me in Maryland. Yeah. And he had a Maryland wrestling shirt on. Yeah. And Joe Gilpin does a lot of work for anytime wrestling. BJJ Fanatics needs like a wrestler uke. He's the guy most of the time. And then so he's worked for Fanatics for a long time. I don't know if he still works for Fanatics, but I think he's he used to when I talked to him.
Yeah.
Gilpin's a great guy. He's gone to UWW and won Worlds there. Like we don't get a chance to see him on commentary very frequently, but I always really appreciate talking to Joe Gilpin. He's a guy that's been behind the scenes kind of doing very similar work to what we do for a long time, just kind of a level up. And I was really happy with his commentary, and his kind of secondary to Victor Hugo was really, really nice and representing Maryland wrestling, which was cool to see. So where do you want to start with this one? There's a bunch of fun matches, a shitload of submissions.
Yeah.
BJJ Stars did not mess around with the medium heavyweights they chose. I think most of these were submissions, I think.
Yeah.
Which is wild for a gi tournament like this at this level.
There was only 2 matches on points.
Mm-hmm. So want to just run down?
Yep.
So it's an 8-man tournament. 8-man?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8-man tournament. Where do you want to start, Miranda?
We'll start with the beginning.
Yeah. Gustavo Batista hit a really nice head and arm triangle over Gabriel Brando. What do you want to say about it? Like, Gustavo Batista, when he locks in, he hit this, was it 2 or 3 times this weekend? There were
no.
We saw a bunch of people going for the head and arm from Mount.
It's just a bunch of head and arm triangles that were done. It wasn't him because he lost then to
you're right.
Anderson later.
Anderson Fajada.
But it was a good match. I mean, once he gets a hold of your head, you're kind of done.
Yeah. And we saw a lot of guys this weekend on BJJ Stars get to Mount, really prioritize getting to Mount and looking for the head and arm from Mount. I don't know if we're seeing sort of a meta change here, but we saw more head and arm triangles from Mount in this tournament than we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
It was an interesting change. And it might be the guys, maybe the weight class, like Batista's known for it and Felipe Andrew is kind of known for it. Maybe that's why, because both of them were in the tournament. It was interesting. Felipe Andrew. Joe Griffin did a really neat job here on commentary talking about Felipe Andrew moving down to medium heavyweight.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. He kind of explained, he was at super heavy. He moved down to ultra and now, or flip those. And now he's at medium heavyweight. And you kind of commented on the pre-show.
Yeah.
Just how much bigger Felipe Andrew looked than the field.
Yeah, he did. And he definitely looked skinnier than normal. Like
he looked a little sucked out almost.
Yeah. But and there was a couple times where he got sweeps where I'm like, yeah, that was a big man sweep. Like, you just used your weight against that person.
But again, if you can make the weight, it's a very vibe. We see guys at +99 ADCC do that frequently. Like, hey, man, it's +99. I'm going to use all the plus that I can versus that sweep. And if it works, man.
But Felipe Andrew just did Felipe Andrew things.
Yeah.
He then goes, the second match of the day was Felipe Andrew versus Leo Lara, right?
Yeah, they said they had a different way of saying his name. Leo Lara is what everyone calls him.
Yeah. He hits like this sideways collar throw over his back. It's fucking wild, dude. Like, not only are you going to collar drag him to the mat, but you're going to do it over your back.
Yeah. It's a guy, there's a name for the throw,
I don't know what it's called,
but it's not.
But it was wild. Yeah. Because he threw him straight over, and it was like, oh, you're on the bottom now.
Yeah. Felipe Andrew's going to be on top. He finished him, right, in this match?
Well, he gets on top, and then they stand back up. And then this is the one where Felipe Andrew sits, and he's like, ooh, triangle. And he just goes from lasso guard to triangle.
Yeah. Which again, is the lasso guard or the triangle from the guard is the thing that made us pay attention to Felipe Andrew in 2020 when he did it to Keenan and then did it to Hulk.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, well, Felipe Andrew's amazing at the triangle from the guard, apparently. Yeah. And we see it again here, but from the lasso, which we're seeing Felipe Andrew really play a lot of recently.
Yeah.
And like slide guys' arms across and down. It's a really, really nice transition that I've been trying to kind of incorporate into my game a little bit. But man, watching Felipe Andrew at this size, you don't fully appreciate just how good he is at that until you like try it. Like go back and watch this finish, and then try this at your gym. Yeah. And then think about how big Felipe Andrew is and the speed that he is able to do that. And having Victor Hugo on commentary, another guy that's known for being a big man that plays really dynamic guard, it really puts it in perspective just how good these guys are at these techniques. Next one. Anything else on that match?
Nope.
Next one. This was super fun. And you have multiple exclamation points in your notes here.
Yeah, because it was cool.
It was cool. Anderson Fajada hits a like a jumping armbar from the single leg X. Mauricio Oliveira has single leg X on Anderson Ferreira, and he jumps a flying armbar from that.
He just kind of grabs the arm on that side and is like, I'm taking this with me, and just sits with it.
Yeah.
And then gets his...
almost like you'd see a 50-50 armbar done.
Yeah.
It's very similar. And to Mauricio Oliveira's credit here, he defends it really well because Anderson Ferreira is in a weird position to be able to hit this armbar.
Yeah.
And Mauricio Oliveira still has Anderson Ferreira's leg in between his legs, and so you know that usually in most cases, if you're in the half guard, you can't get this armbar. It's just not available to you, and so you have to clear your leg out of the half guard to be able to get it across the body to finish the armbar. Mauricio Oliveira shoves Anderson Ferreira's leg down and then shelves it on both of his knees, and he has the lower pant grip, so it's on top, and then Anderson Ferreira is able to clear that off, get over top of the body, and then finish the armbar. Yeah. It was a really neat transition and thought process from Mauricio Oliveira because he can potentially, if he has both shins in front behind Anderson Ferreira's calf, with this pant grip, you can push against this and counter sweep, and you can get and sweep out of this position to top position. But Anderson Ferreira is able to beat the knee grip and get his leg in front of the hip line, and then Mauricio Oliveira can't collect it back under both legs in order to get out. It was a really neat, very quick back and forth from an unconventional position that we just don't see. I don't remember the last time I've seen a guy do a jumping armbar from single leg X. It's a thing we've seen, but it is not common. We haven't talked about it on the show, at least in a couple of years. It is not a technique you see very common.
I think it's something you see in the lower levels.
Maybe, yeah.
But not in black belt, if that makes any sense.
That probably makes more sense.
I think because in black belts kind of are like, yeah, this doesn't work. I'm not going to do it. Where you get blue belts and purple belts and are like, watch this shit. I'm going to hit something.
But also at that level, guys can have big enough holes in their game where you can get armbarred from the single leg X. So it's really neat to see it over this level of competition. And it's, again, one of the reasons we like watching Anderson Ferreira is because he has a really dynamic submission game, kind of like Francisco Lowe. Has a really dynamic submission game that's fun in the gi. So that was super neat. Yeah. Next we have these are out of order a little bit, but
no, they're not. They're in order as it went.
Oh, okay. Yep. They're right. My bad, Miranda.
I know I typed them as I went, so I did not watch it. I watched it in order.
I don't watch. I need to watch more things in order. I tend to jump around. I'm
a weirdo that has to watch everything in order. If it's not in order, it doesn't make sense.
And that's why you generate most of our notes. Next, we had Anderson Ferreira over Gustavo Batista. That was points. Scored early, and that was.
Oh, you missed one. You forgot. Is that you?
This was fun.
You forgot.
Ooh, I'm excited. Okay, so the final match.
That's why you thought you were out of order because we were going.
Yeah, that's why I was
Anderson
confused.
Twice in a row, and because you missed Bahens.
This was super fun. Azaki Bahens submits Francisco Lowe with an arm and guillotine. I just want to talk about the finishing sequence for two things. One, Francisco Lowe does a defense you almost never see, and you could see it in the camera. So if someone is ever guillotining you, arm in or just regular arm out, you can open your mouth
like a baby bird.
Yeah, just
think about a baby bird trying to ask for food.
Yeah, it's just as wide as you can, and it changes where your neck is because your chin gets in the way in a funny way that tends to actually push the arm down.
Yeah.
And you see Francisco Lowe, while Azaki Bahens is on his head trying to finish an arm and
doing
guillotine.
The baby bird.
Opening his mouth as hard as he can. And it's working. And then eventually Azaki Bahens rolls him over. He flips him to the side.
Yeah.
And then he rolls up and ends up in a mounted guillotine crank. A sideways mounted guillotine crank, which is a really effective way to finish the arm and guillotine from this. He did have a weird angle, but I assume Azaki Bahens, because he's so well known for the guillotine, just has an insane squeeze.
I think he also had the gi. I think he was holding onto the gi.
Okay, maybe that's what it was, because the hand position was kind of hard to see.
I think he was holding. I think at one point they show he's holding onto the gi material. And so I think he had his hands in the. So he wasn't just holding his own hands; he was holding the gi material.
I thought he was holding his hands there.
I think he was doing both.
Okay, was it a samurai choke, or was it just an arm in?
No, it was just a guillotine, but I think he was holding the gi material, the lapel.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Add to it.
And then he hips through, and just Francisco Lowe goes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was a super nice sequence from Behance, and we know he's so good at the guillotine. Like, that is most of his highlight wins are with that guillotine, either arm in or arm out. Like, most of his big wins and finishes are from that. And Francisco Lowe, to see him like trying that late stage defense of just opening the mouth and working positionally as well, it was super neat. It's not something to see very often.
Yeah.
So now we are back on track with Anderson Ferreira versus Gustavo Batista, and Anderson takes that 2-0.
Yeah. And he gets a double leg at the very beginning, and that's most of the action.
Yeah, it's Batista in the guard, and then it's like
Batista
2 points, you
trying
score
to
early,
do things,
and you're done, and Anderson is able to take it over Batista. Next, we have Felipe Andrew versus Zaki Behance. So I missed a piece. I missed the medical stoppage in this match.
Yeah.
I saw the initial takedown, and then you were like, the medical stoppage. And I went, what medical stoppage?
Yeah, they stopped it for a minute. They were like, ooh, because so Felipe Andrew pulls guard, and when he goes to pull guard, Zaki tries to jump over the guard, and as he jumps
almost jump like into mount.
Yeah,
or jump an armbar, jump something over.
Tries to jump over, and Felipe's like, no, I'm going to balloon sweep you now. And he kind of balloon sweeps Behance onto his noggin.
Kind of like, not exactly, like he torpedoes his head into the mat over top, and then
lands into.
And I missed all of them because I just
mount.
tabbed forward. I was like, okay, they're gonna restart. Whatever, something happened. And then you were like, medical stoppage. And I went, oh, that makes sense because he just like from like 3 or 4 feet up.
I don't know how you didn't see.
I don't know either.
That they went. He landed on his head.
And then you see Felipe Andrew just demolish on points of kind of out of it. Seemed a little bit out of it. Zaki Behance. And Felipe Andrew, again, I don't want to diminish anything for Felipe Andrew's
Behance
performance.
gets out of mount.
He does.
And that's more than I think a lot of people could do. And he does the weird kipping escape that I can never do.
This is the only escape I use.
Really?
I use this and the hands on the hips.
I can't do a kipping escape.
Yeah.
I look like a dead dolphin, like some kind of weird like dolphin having seizures when I try to do that.
Yeah. The most notable, the first time I ever saw it was Rory McDonald did it at Metamoris. And I was like, that's a neat escape. What's that? I was like, oh, it's a kipping escape. And that's before it was like the most common escape ever.
Yeah.
It was something you saw like in MMA mostly.
Yeah.
But
I hate it.
You also see when Behance does this, he frames on the outside hip as soon as Felipe Andrew makes the space so he can push his legs down and get it. It's a really interesting escape, and the camera angle for Behance here is actually in a really good spot if you want to see how he's able to do it. Because again, like you said, almost no one's getting out of mount from Felipe Andrew. Like, it happens, like Wardzinski can do it, but not many other guys are going to get out of the mount from Andrew. Yeah. Behance does it really well in like getting out, but he's still phenomenally outpointed here, like 11-0, before Felipe Andrew moves on. And then we have, for the finals, we have Felipe Andrew and Anderson Ferreira, and this is just Felipe Andrew getting to top, getting on top.
Anderson almost gets like a throw by pass on him, and I was like, holy shit, like Anderson's strong because he just picked up all of Felipe Andrew and just threw him by.
I mean, Anderson's pretty big as well. Yeah. I don't think he's not quite as big as Felipe Andrew, but it seemed like there was a little more size parity in this match than in what match was earlier when Felipe versus like Leo Lara, or even Behance didn't seem quite as big as Felipe Andrew. But then Felipe Andrew gets the head and arm from mount. And then as soon as he's able to get out of the quarter guard, you see him just lever down. You see Anderson Ferreira go, nope, and lifts his hand up like tap, like really like the big tap, but not quick, but definitely like, nope, I'm done. I know exactly where this is going, and I'm not going to let you just crank into my neck.
But he hit the Marigali sweep. A lot of people were hitting that. The lasso, well, it's the lasso with the leg in the middle. Yeah. And you kind of like pop them up over. Mm-hmm. I call it the Marigali sweep.
That's, I think, what a lot of people are calling it now.
Because it's what Marigali hits.
Yeah. It is a very, very common sweep that Nicholas Marigali hits. And that was the tournament. It was a super fun tournament. A lot of submissions. I thought it ran really well. It was very entertaining.
I would like, personally, to have them tell me what's being said in Portuguese. Like, I want to watch the Portuguese and then have it, like, give me subtitles.
You want to subtitle Portuguese?
Because they look like they're having a shit ton of fun, and I have no idea what's going on.
See, I like the technical commentary for the English guys, but I would love captioned commentary. Yeah. It would
just
be
because,
really cool
like,
to see.
I watch it, and they look like they're having
Well, they also do a
bunch
of
like
cool interviews and intermission. Like, you do a lot of interstitial stuff at BJJ Stars that because again I don't speak Portuguese, and maybe that's more so on me. Maybe I should learn Portuguese. They tend to skip over a lot of that stuff in the English broadcast, which is understandable.
I know in the last one we wound up watching the Portuguese broadcast
because the English one there was an issue initially with the English broadcast,
and it had like commercials where the Portuguese broadcast did not.
Yeah, I remember that now.
But yeah, I just want to know what goes on because it looks like they're having a good time.
Yeah. I did like that they actually cut to the English commentary. Like that was, it seemed much more part of the broadcast where they were switching between the action.
Yeah, it wasn't
and
like
switch back to the English commentary.
It didn't sound like they had like 4 guys in a room somewhere by
it didn't
themselves.
sound like backroom commentary. It seemed like it was a planned thing. Like this is how honestly I loved that they would do it.
Yeah.
I just wish that in my feed that when I clicked on it, it wouldn't just start the Portuguese commentary.
Yeah.
Because then whenever I go to continue watching and flow, it pops the Portuguese commentary, even though I was last watching English commentary because that's the first thing that loaded on the page.
Yeah.
Just another issue with flow and how they kind of do their management for their playback. But it was a lot of fun. Anything else on the bracket?
Nope.
All right, let's move into the super fights. Miranda, I'm going to let you lead this one. Which one? They were fun. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu this weekend.
Yeah, it was fun. There was a lot of different matches. We'll talk about. Okay, we're gonna go Peter Frank because I like Peter Frank.
Because they had beef.
Yeah. So allegedly, against Celestino.
Celsius Venecia.
Yeah. The two of them. So it seemed like Celestino was not. What?
Celcio.
Celcio?
Yeah, everyone calls him Celcio.
Okay, Celcio. Seemed like Celcio did not want him to grab a hold of him at all. So like there was a lot of hand fighting, and then like Peter Frank would try to do something, and then it was slightly chippy. It was slightly aggressive, and they were trying Peter Frank was trying all the crazy flying shit that you could ever imagine that he normally does.
Which we were really happy to have him do that. It was fun.
Yeah. But it was, in my opinion, it was fun. It was fun to watch. There was a sweep at the end, which led to Peter Frank winning, but it was fun.
Yeah, the last sequence was really interesting. It was essentially Peter Frank hitting like an outside.
He tries to do
Sotogari almost, and then getting countered by Celso, going to the back, and then Peter Frank getting on top. And it was, I think the scoring was interesting, but that was kind of one of the more fun sequences of the match. Was that initial like really hard throw at the end and counter by Vinicius.
Yeah, and at one point, Salisi, what is dude's name?
Celso.
At one point, Celso tries to throw him, and Peter Frank tries to jump a flying armbar from being thrown, like going over someone's back, which I never thought about, because like I know when you try to drop Sayanagi someone, you can like jump their back, right, and roll with them. Mm-hmm. But he did the opposite. He tried to jump an armbar off of a drop Sayanagi, which is pretty wild.
I
know, and I was like, wow.
And you see guys do it sometimes, but it's like it is an uncommon response to that. But I kind of do like it.
I liked it. It was fun. So you had that. You had Peter Frank winning that match. You also had Ana Rodriguez, who is the Brazilian under 55 ADCC trials champion.
Yeah. It was in the gi, so they had a bunch of gi titles as well. This was funny on the broadcast because it was
Anna,
A-N-N-A versus A-N-A.
Yeah.
And it was Anna versus Anna, but different spellings of Anna. Also, I got to say it now because I'm going to forget about it. The BJJ Heroes, I love that they have their own like score.
Yeah.
I wish they would like double or quadruple the size of it. We've talked about it for.
You mean the little box that's on the screen?
The little box, because it has the full names, it has the point layouts, but it is really, really small.
It is small.
I would love to see it in the center of the bottom of the screen and just 4 times as big.
Yeah.
But again, it's so much better than the flow overlay that doesn't have any information for you. Like the overlay is great. It is just very, very small, especially when watching on a phone.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to read. So not to torpedo the segment.
Oh, no, that's fine. And it was for the featherweight championship. It was Anna versus Anna. And it was a little bit of a slower pace match. But, oh, yeah. Okay, no, I was like, did I just use the same letters for everyone? I did not. So Anna Rodriguez jumps guard. Mm-hmm. Not jumps guard, but pulls guard.
Pulls guard.
She gets a sweep, but she gets a really weird sweep. Okay, so let's back it up, because my Annas versus Annas is getting all confusing.
This is why I'm not gonna lie. This is why I'm letting you do this match, because I am already confused.
Yeah, because it was basically sweep attempts back and forth. But they weren't like full sweeps, and then there was like a half.
It got very confusing. If
Yeah.
you've seen these women compete before, it looked like a lot of their matches.
I believe Anna Schwartz pulls guard. When she pulls guard, Anna Rodriguez tries to go for a knee bar. When she goes for the knee bar and her butt hits the mat, Anna Schmidt sits up, which is what you do in every IBJJF match because you get to sweep in that way.
Yes.
So then after that, you have, but it could have been the other way. Now I'm getting all confused. I don't know.
Anna versus Anna matches get confusing in our notes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anna Rodriguez is able to take this match via 2 points for the featherweight championship for BJJ Stars.
Yeah. I got really confused.
It was a fun match. It was a bit slower, but it was definitely I think Anna Rodriguez implementing her game from top position, and Anna Schmidt like looking on the bottom to work there, but Anna Rodriguez with just really more activity on top, and those 2 points get her the win there. This was a lot of fun. We had Miriam. I got his name. McQueen versus Sam Nagai. I really enjoyed this match. I know maybe it wasn't your favorite match of the card. I really enjoyed this match from the dynamic of we got to see a ton from Sam Nagai's guard and Miriam's guard, and we got to see some of the dynamic passing from Miriam that that I like him for, and I really like about his guard. Sam Nagai is a really diligent guard player, plays more of a longer range, middle long range guard. And Miriam is super, super diligent with the way that he chooses his grips. There were some back and forth sweeps here, but really what wins this match is Miriam's just continued pass attempts. Like there's a couple of pass attempts where he has a great grip on Sam's leg or knee, and he will roll through and he will keep this grip while he is trying to spin, and he's forcing the guy into the turtle like a couple of different times and scoring the ad in forcing the turtle on pass. And the guy is doing a really great job of not getting stuck there, but being able to get back to his guard. I just thought the whole sequences that they were using with the pant grips were really neat. There is one neat sequence where you see Miriam from top position keep a grip on Sam's leg. Sam is able to kind of kick Miriam over. Miriam, instead of letting go of that grip and avoiding the sweep, just gives up the sweep, only then to re-sweep and try to take Sam's back off of it. And it was just a really, really nice, like, this is the matches where I really like the IBJJF style scoring, where it's you're fighting for these really, really small, literally for advantages. What wins this match is one advantage for Miriam, and you're fighting for these really small advantages. But this match, it felt like they were both fighting for it, as opposed to like playing the game of I'm an advantage here. Like it felt like they were both opening their game up enough to get things going. And that's again one of the things we love about Sam Nagai.
At the end, you have Sam Nagai scoring like 2 or 3 advantages at the very, very end. Yeah, almost winning. But not
super close match. But again, the text of this match felt like they were both fighting for it and like showing off their game. And a lot of times in these lower weight IBJJF matches, you can get a very like static game in places, and it just didn't feel like that throughout this match. And that's again to credit to Sam Nagai and credit to Miriam here, because that's sort of how they play, and that's one of the reasons we really like covering Sam Nagai, is because he kind of lays it on the line in most of his matches and puts on fun performances. So that was BJJ Stars. Did we forget any matches you want to talk about, Miranda?
No, we're good.
Yeah, it was fun. Again, both events this weekend were a lot of fun. Yeah. PGF is a little bit on the longer side, but there's definitely some stuff that merits going back and rewatching, and some entertaining matchups between some high-level guys and some guys that are on the come-up. Yeah. And BJJ Stars had a ton of subs throughout the entire tournament, some great Legends matches, as well as like just a really fun high submission rate tournament.
Enigma is tonight.
Yeah, we were recording on Sunday night, April 28th. So the Max Hansen versus Elijah Dorsey match has not happened yet. We previewed it last week. Yeah. You kind of wonder, after a week of really, really hard competition like that at PGF in Vegas, how Max is going to look versus like Elijah Dorsey.
Because his last interview, he had an entire mouthful of blood. Yeah, as he was talking, he said he was fine, but
and also Max Hansen competes all the time, all across the U.S. Like he is no stranger to kind of keep
still that's like, an entire but that's still an entire week of competing. That's not one day or one match. That is 12 matches. Yeah, and then going into
a match with your U.S. trials winner and like very high level black belt Elijah Dorsey, who's going to come in with a very, very good game plan, and like it'll be an interesting match. Again, if you're listening to the show, the match has already happened. You can go find the match, but if you haven't seen the match, I would encourage you to go and find it, because it'll be a really nice benchmarking match because both these guys have the tools to take this match.
Yes.
Elijah typically plays a lot more conservative and is much more emphasis on positional control and dominance and score. But Max Hansen, we've seen him have like phenomenal performances where he punches far beyond like where a lot of guys think he is, and we've seen him kind of have some hiccup performances. And so, off of a weaker competition, I'm really curious to see how he matches up with Elijah Dorsey.
Yes,
so
I agree.
It will be fun. The match will have happened by the time you hear this. Go back and watch it. Next week, we are going to preview who's number one. That's what I was trying to find a minute ago, was a card lineup, but it's really hard to find a who's number one card lineup. We have like Nicky Ryan and JT Torres. That card is happening in 2 weeks. We will be previewing that card next week. If there are any matches that you want us to kind of spend more time on, let us know. We're going to mostly focus on the main card, as we usually do, probably move into all the matches per usual, but... I'm really, really excited. That looks like a really fun matched card. As we get closer to ADCC, it's going to answer a lot of questions like, how does JT Torres look? How does Nicky Ryan look? That's the match I think I'm really excited for. We have Lovato on there. We have Wagner versus Marigali. They have been both very respectful and very, matter of fact and frank about that. It's been the lead up to that has been very fun. I'm amped for that. I'm very much am looking forward to previewing that on next week's show.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. How was your let's move to the outro now.
Yeah.
You had a fun week.
Yeah, I had a Marcellus. Well, I had a crazy week because I had a stove delivered in my house, and I don't know how crazy you get, but when you have to get your old stove taken out and your new stove put in, and it's gas, and so then you have to have it installed and all kinds of crazy madness, it literally drives me insane.
And you were traveling.
And I was traveling for work. And
you had Marcelo Garcia.
Yeah, and I had Marcelo Garcia, and he put us through warm-ups, which was great. And then first thing is jumping guillotines. So, yeah, jumping guillotines.
As the after the warm-up.
After the warm-up.
Yeah, I love Marcelo. You were talking about that. He taught the high elbow guillotine. You're like, I did it a little different. He does it way differently. And
he does his hands differently than I do, which I never really. I just do it a certain way because my elbows and shoulders are bendy, so I can do things that some people can't do. But he taught the greatest hits of Marcelo, basically. Which is kind
of what you want from a Marcelo Garcia seminar. You want you're really famous for these certain things. Show me the shit you're amazing and world class at that you won a bunch of titles with. Yeah. And he was like, yes, I'm good at this. This is what I'm going to show. Yeah. Those are always good seminars.
Yeah, and it was interesting. And one weird takeaway that my friend that went with us or with me took away was Marcelo doesn't hold on to your hands. He floats over your hands when he's rolling with you until he grabs his grip. And his grip is when he grabs his grip, he's going to go from there. He doesn't touch you before then. He floats over you, and then once he grabs, he goes.
Interesting.
But there's no he doesn't grab a hand and hold on to a hand at any time. He kind of floats over your hands. It's really weird.
That's interesting. I never thought about that in watching him. I'm thinking about a couple of highlights from Marcelo.
He was talking about hands, and he was talking about how if you have control of their hands and you're on top of their hands, they're not going to grab your head and they're not going to grab your body because you have their hands. And so he does that, and then from there he sets everything up from there, and everything else is a reaction of different things.
That is a really interesting tactical and strategical approach to the game. That's
yeah.
I'm gonna go back and watch Marcelo and look for that because I'm thinking of some highlights where I can see him do that.
He kind of floats over your hands and then he grabs, and when he grabs, he's gonna go. And it was very interesting to watch that because I didn't, that wasn't something I got. And then he has some crazy balance. He jumps into mount hips first. I couldn't do that without my hands hitting the mat. Every time I tried, I would throw my hips and fall. And and I just felt like an idiot because I did it once directly in front of him, and he's like, "You need to not touch the mat when you do that." I was like, "I don't know how to do
Marcelo.
it. I'm sorry,
I'm not a 9-time champion. My bad, man. We're doing different things."
But it was fun. It was a good time. It was definitely nice to not have to drive to New York to see him, but
that's cool.
Yeah, and he looked healthy.
That's good. Post cancer now.
Yeah,
he looked awesome.
He looked as good as as he's ever been. So, which is awesome. Great.
I would love to see a Legends match of him come back to ADCC. Like he talked about being an alternate, but I would love to see him.
He was
like
supposed to been back at 80, like before he
crazy.
got sick last time. That was what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. It was cool. I love Marcelo. It's cool. I want to pick your brain about some Marcelo stuff.
Oh, and he's. I mean, the other thing is, whoever's his uke, I feel so bad for that person. He like grabs a hold of you in a way that I'm just like, oh, that like you can hear him slap, like because most of his stuff is very like quick, and it's very like. If you're, if somebody's in seated guard, like you shove their shoulders so they go to their back, and then when they come up, you like jump your guillotine on their head. Like he does not do that nicely. Like you hear him hit the guy, come up and grab the head, and I'm like, holy fuck, you know.
That's
and
how
like,
you win a bunch of world titles with guillotines.
And I remember when me and someone else did a class up in New York. Like he was teaching us to like spin people. Like if you're in supine guard, to just like grab their head and their legs and just spin them like a top. He was just like, I mean, like Andy Varela slap to the side of the head to like spin, and I was like, holy shit, dude's getting beat up doing this shit. But yeah, he's a little rough to his ukis, but I guess that's cool, the way it is.
Cool technique at the highest level.
Yeah, I guess that's how it is.
That's awesome. I got nothing else going on this week. I think we just have a regular week at the podcast, do some other editing, healing up some injuries and some dumb stuff that I got going on, and then previewing who's number one.
Yep. Good times.
That's all I got. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, the host.
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Miranda. Say, Matt, what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.